Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com. Running low on prospects? Feel like you've contacted everyone in your market and you're wondering what to do next? If so, today's episode can help. Stay tuned to learn 2 reliable ways to expand your target audience without sacrificing quality, 4 basic filters that you can adjust to find thousands of new prospects online, how to use your own customers to find untapped, profitable prospects, and more. Enjoy.
I had a question from one of our users recently about what do you do when your funnel is running dry? So just to give you a little bit of context and background, this user had a cold email campaign working quite okay, but they were scraping leads from LinkedIn. And now 2 months in, they don't have more leads. They kind of like exhausted this channel. And they're like, what do we do now? Kind of thing. So obviously I said, hold on a second. I'm going to ask Jack. He's the man when you have those sort of questions. So I guess if you're okay with that, I'm just going to squeeze you with a lot of questions to sort of like help that person get unstuck when the list run dry.
You've picked a great question, a great topic here, because there's nothing scarier than seeing your pipeline shrivel towards that single digit numbers and then, sort of scratch your head on what to do next, especially if your cold email campaign's working. Not to let the cat out of the bag too early in this episode, there are ways, rest assured, there are ways to keep adding good qualified prospects to your list for many, many months. And Jeremy, you start firing away questions and we'll get to the bottom so that you'll find out how you don't have to approach 0 prospects for definitely the short-term scenario.
All right, so let's say I got my VA, I got a process in place, I did a video, I hired a VA, I told them to look at LinkedIn for, title, company of that size. And, like last week, they say they couldn't find a lead anymore.
Okay.
And basically the filter is running always the same sort of leads. And now I'm scared. What do I do now? Because that's obviously a good channel to bring some money in the company.
So the first thing to become aware of is the question of, are you running out of prospects or has your market gone dry? Have you tapped everyone that could possibly become a customer one day? And more often than not, you've still got a market to go after. You just need to adjust who it is that you want to add to your pipeline in the next couple of weeks. And you'll be able to adjust periodically. There's a way to keep getting leads. You just need to adjust your targeting as required. So think about it this way. If you want to increase how many leads you got, you can either go deeper or you can go broader. So deeper means you're going after the exact same kind of prospect, just looking for other places they may be. So you've exhausted LinkedIn. That's okay. Maybe there's other places where they're hanging out. It could be that Clearbit could help you find some more leads. It could be Lime leads or other directories could give you more of the same person. And this is a great place to get started if you're freaking out because you don't have enough leads in your pipeline, because there's the fewest number of variables involved in list building. You already know what's working. You're just looking for more places to find some more good prospects. That's also the easiest thing. So first thing I would do is check other directories. Maybe there's hunter.io, Clearbit, or it could even be Google searches with a VA could help you bring out more of the same kind of prospects you've reached out to.
Does that mean that I need to constantly look into different channels of acquisitions for my same market? And then what happened when I actually looked at all those channels, or the one I can think of? Then what do I do next? I'm assuming as well that there's a lot of crossover, right? So I may be looking at some directories, but most of them were already on LinkedIn. So I'm not quite sure also how much new thing that's going to bring me. Is that worth the effort to just tap onto this new channel? So as you see, there's like lots of questions.
Yes, it's going to take a little bit of digging, but it's worthwhile because you could find 5,000 prospects that match all your filters with another tool or database or directory in a few hours, right? The other thing that is a little bit more tangible, this could be what I would call like practical, go do this right now kind of advice. Within LinkedIn, you can set up an alert for a particular kind of prospect. So what I've done is, and for all of the saved searches you have, you can just ask LinkedIn to send you an email weekly or bi-monthly or monthly every time a new prospect matches those parameters. So that's a way that fresh leads are going to be just sort of showing up to your inbox without even trying. These are people that don't match your specifications today, but as soon as their company hits a certain size or they switch industries or the company's created, you get notified about that and you can add them to your pipeline.
Nice. And I guess you can also tune your campaign to say like, hey, welcome to the industry, or
now you're talking.
Or sort of things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So
you may actually get better results doing that.
So timing is everything. And newcomers to the industry certainly indicates that they could be a better fit, especially if what you have to offer will help them get up and running quicker. Now, the other sort of lens that I offered when it comes to finding more leads is not going deeper, but going broader. And this means expanding who you have been reaching out to so that you can find more people in your segments. Now, if you're listening and you hear Jack saying, go broader with your prospecting, a red flag should be going off saying, wait a minute, you guys keep talking about running specific, highly segmented cold email campaigns. Is Jack about to tell me to throw that in the trash can? The answer is yes. Just kidding. The answer is no. All you need to do.
You're so full of Jack.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm done.
But all you need to do is every time, let's say you're going a little bit broader with the industries you choose to reach out to. Well, go ahead and create specific campaigns for each new industry that you're adding. Or let's say you've come to the conclusion that there are no more companies that have fewer than 10 employees that match your other qualifications that you could reach out to. Well, okay, does it make sense maybe to reach out to a slightly bigger company? If so, go ahead and build a list of that kind of prospect. Just tweak your campaign so it's tailored to a company of a larger size, keeping in mind that they've got different employees, they have different team structures that would handle this problem slightly different than, let's say, a 5-person company.
So if I hear you're right, you're actually saying go and check different vertical or different approach to the same pool to some extent?
So by vertical, Jeremy, are you saying try out different industries?
Yeah.
Yes. In short, let me give you an example. There was a client of ours that was going after large companies and specifically the people that handled their international marketing efforts, right? Well, a couple months go by and they acquire a new large client, Fortune 500 size, and they were surprised because this client was using it for HR. And so we sort of had a light bulb moment where we realized that there's another use case for what they were selling. And so we created a new campaign tailored to the HR world. And that opened up a huge door for a lot more prospects that we could go after now that we understood that people were buying from the human resources sector, right? So at best, you can look at your current client list and say, okay, looks like most of the folks here are in sales at mid-sized companies in the construction industry. Okay, but look at this. We've got 2 or 3 more clients coming in from computer software. Let's see if we can put a campaign around this new vertical to see if we can bring more prospects. So notice 2 things. We're not guessing. We're trying our very best to use data before we pull the trigger on any new campaign. The more guesses, the more variables you have in your cold email campaign, the higher the risk. And I don't like risk. I like to do things that work. And so look at your customers. And 2, we're picking a different industry. So automatically that's giving access to a couple thousand prospects we didn't have before. And again, remember, we're going to create a tailored campaign just for this vertical so that it feels and reads like it's written just for them.
I got a few questions I could drill on. But basically, you're saying at this stage that there is no automated way of doing it. It requires a little bit of digging every time, right? So if I hear you well in this case, you could actually get that by reanalyzing who were your last recent customers and figuring out maybe the market have shifted, or maybe there is a window of opportunity we haven't seen before. So again, that's not something that is automated. And what you're basically telling us is that it's a sort of like constant effort. It's not, I can build up my cold email campaign today and then have an automated system, put a lot of effort up front, have it running, and then I'm done kind of thing. Is that unrealistic to some extent?
I don't think the goal, Jeremy, is to just set it and forget it, so to speak. I mean, there's some things that can be automated, and with the help of software like QuickMail or prospecting tools, things can become easier. But every couple of weeks, twice a month, or at the end of every Friday, it's a good idea to reflect on how the campaign has been performing. Did you get any new customers or great leads that week from new places where you wouldn't have thought to look otherwise? And if so, there needs to be a little bit of brainstorming. Some sales creativity needs to happen so that you can map out your next segment that you want to go after. But the cool thing, Jeremy, is once this decision has been made, once the, let's say, reflection is done and you say, you know what, we can do a great campaign for HR people next month, then the rest can be automated with the help of the video and the VA, so that the VA can just watch the instruction and learn how to segment. Or you can say, okay, VA, now we're going to go do the same process using LinkedIn, but this time here are the filters we're going to use. So in my opinion, it's a short time where you're thinking hard about who to prospect next, another short time about putting instructions on how to build that list, and then handing that off to either a piece of software or VA or both in order to get the list built sort of automatically at that stage.
What about the idea of reusing your existing customers or existing users to get more from them? So in terms of referrals, and that could be maybe automated, getting more referrals that gets you more customer kind of thing, and having that channel as automated maybe. We're not strictly speaking cold email here in this case, I'm sure. I understand.
No, it's okay. It doesn't matter if we're not speaking strictly on cold email here, because we're sort of tapping whatever resource we have, in this case, it's current customers, in order to learn where some new great prospects are hiding out that we hadn't thought of before. Now, can referrals be automated? Yes, but I wouldn't get too caught up in that. I personally think that depending how many customers you have, you could put some kind of a email drip in place where once they've reached a certain number of hours of use or a certain payment plan, they've identified themselves as a great customer, then maybe you send an email that says, hey, you're awesome. Do you know anyone else who would be able to benefit? But also just talking with customers, listening to some of their, let's say, use cases whenever you're either exchanging emails or you're just maybe looking up their company. Sometimes that's a really easy way to find out things you didn't know about where you can prospect next. Is just Google all the people that are your customers today, and you may find out that some of them belong in verticals that you hadn't prospected before. So you can ask them for referrals, but you can also do your own research on them, or simply pick up the phone and, see if you can get their time to understand who they are and what they're using your product for. That's oftentimes like the best place for inspiration here, because it's not made up. It's a paying customer is telling you who they are. And if you know that, then you can hopefully find a couple hundred more just like them.
So if we take one or two steps back, it means to me that this user who had his campaign running for 2 months with a sort of like automated system getting leads from LinkedIn, who is suddenly, running dry, it's mostly because that process that you're advocating about, like on a weekly basis, looking at where leads comes from, maybe exploring different channels and so on, didn't happen. And therefore, that one-off effort at the beginning of the cold email campaign actually just, run dry. And they could have solved this by simply looking on a weekly basis. Okay, right. What do we know now we didn't know maybe last week? How is the reply, the response? Is there different thing we can go after? How do we prepare the next channel already before we're running dry? All that sort of thing could have helped. It's like, running a cold email campaign.
Something else we haven't talked about, and that's just running new experiments for prospects. So let's say this particular user, Jeremy, didn't have the luxury of months of customer data, of a huge database where they could do some analysis and figure out new verticals to go after. Sometimes it's all right to just create a test where you're using, hopefully, a very similar version of cold emails that are currently working. You're just tailoring that to a new prospect segment that you haven't tried yet. And I'm saying use a similar version of cold emails that are already working, because if you're testing new prospect segments, it certainly helps to put your best cold emails first. Just, again, make sure they're tailored to match the needs and problems of the people you're contacting. But going after a new segment, a completely new segment of prospects, could help you identify the next hot list that you can put together. All it takes is running a few experiments and seeing if any of those end up bringing you customers. And we've had instances where this has told us, okay, it looks like we were right. This is a hot list of prospects to go after. And then, you've got a couple more 100 prospects you can reach out to, hopefully.
I do like your idea of having an initiative saying like, all right, October or November or December, whatever is for HR people, let's go after them and then see how we're performing with that. One quick question. Did you ever had some success just re-engaging the same list, basically? So it's like, okay, I'm going to take all my cold prospect and just reblast them.
We've had, let's say, campaigns where there's 8 touches and we've taken prospects that haven't done a single thing on that sequence and reached out to them again through cold email. And the results work. I mean, you're going to get customers out of that list still. The list, I think, is never truly dead. And you probably have a lot of money in your old, quote unquote, prospect list. But that's not enough to say that you don't need to worry about finding new companies to go after each week. I would say keep reaching out. I think it's money on the table if you don't, but keep prospecting so that you can get big wins going after segments each week, each month. So it's not enough.
Basically, you have a better chance at going after a new prospect than beating a dead horse.
Yes.
And what about actually changing the people you're contacting within the company? So let's say, I've been contacting director of marketing, they're not replying. Maybe I go straight to VP of sales or something like that and then go at them, same company, and say, hey, I tried your colleague in marketing and maybe he's on holiday or maybe that's not really in his alley. Have you been considering such and such kind of thing?
There's nothing wrong with going after multiple people at a single company. And a lot of times you're going to be wrong with who you decide needs to see this email, just because companies are structured differently from one to the next. So yes, for sure, you can try different levels of seniority. The 4 basic prospect attributes that you can play with in order to increase your prospect size, your market size, would be the role that they're in. So sales, marketing, or HR, their seniority level, VP, CXO, or intern, the industry they're in, and finally, the size of the company. So playing with those 4 attributes, especially if you're using LinkedIn filters, should drastically change the number of prospects that you can have a VA put together on a list for you. Just remember, don't do any huge drastic changes right away. It's best to sort of make smaller tweaks so that you can verify that you're going the right direction with your new prospecting. And also, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but make sure that you customize the emails for each new segment you go after. Even if you're just switching seniorities, those people are probably dealing with different problems or they have different responsibilities.
Benefits from the software as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but benefits. And also they're sort of graded or assessed on different metrics. As you go up, the companies or their goals change. So just make sure you're reflecting on the email copy.
Could you repeat the 4 for me, please?
And these are basic. There's a lot more attributes and events that you can prospect using, but the basic 4 are the role, the seniority, the industry, and the size of the company. So playing around with those should get you a whole lot more leads. And especially if you've got data that tells you you've got customers that match a certain parameter, going after them is a good idea.
I hate to ask this question, but what if I just don't have the bandwidth to review it on a sort of weekly basis? What are kind of the hacks or tips or thing I can put in place so I don't need to be that much involved with this sort of creative process?
Assign somebody to your cold email campaign that does have the bandwidth and capabilities to make smart decisions every week so that you're targeting correctly. I have to say, this is where the money is in cold email. If you're reaching out to the wrong person, it doesn't matter how diligent you are or how much A/B testing you do, you're going to lose. So if, in my opinion, anyone running a cold email campaign can afford to spend 2 hours a week for the big decisions, right? So this is who is most aligned with our product right now? Who haven't we reached out to that is a hot segment today? You know, where's the lowest hanging fruit? These are questions that should be answered by people who really get your product and your business and your customers. Remember that running a cold email campaign, it's a lot of legwork that could be outsourced. The big questions should be tackled. And so if you're sitting there saying, I ain't really got the time for this kind of stuff, just remember you're handing off the most important question that's going to make or break your campaign. So it better be with somebody on your team or an agency, wink, wink, that really isn't afraid to do the research and understand who's the next biggest customer profile you can contact. Another thing, Jeremy, don't get the impression this takes a lot of effort, especially if you've got customers already. If you've got a dozen or 50 customers that you could have a VA or someone on your team just put on a spreadsheet and just add 4 columns. Really simple: for role, for industry, for company size, and seniority. That's going to tell you a lot. And all you need to do is take a look at the list, and the 80-20 principle comes into play here. At a glance, you'll be able to say, wow, I had no idea that so many people were in HR. Let's try going after them next week, even if you don't know. And Jeremy's holding up Perry Marshall's 80-20 Sales and Marketing, a book that should be read through and sitting on your desk. If you're into cold email, you'll have a field day with it. So A, it's important, and B, you can figure out how to get somebody to take care of it for you. Worst case scenario.
I love that because that's very actionable. I'm someone who thinks in actionable things. So every week I can have my spreadsheet being filled even by one of my employees that mentioned all the new customers that we had, all the new people who signed up, and then have all their 4 columns. And then I can review it because that's like a 10-20 minutes kind of thing. So once I figured out, okay, maybe this next week or the next, in 2 weeks' time, we could go after this specific persona, shall we say?
Yep.
Then, is that it? Is my role done kind of thing? Can I still outsource at this stage, or do I still need to do some brainstorming?
Almost.
Remember, I don't like using my brain that much, and I'd like to do something else.
Yeah, and you're busy
Yes.
and you've got a company to run. All right, so if you don't have the luxury of having an agency that gets cold email, that's fine. But the last really important thing you probably want to be careful to hand off to just anybody would be the email content itself. Because once you've got the list nailed down, you're going to make sure that the emails are fine-tuned and hopefully are working based on previous A/B tests before you just go ahead and send them off to your prospects. Because we're talking about where to find new prospects, and there's a lot of ways, a lot of places you can go to find lists. But I don't care what business you're in, that's a finite number. There's only, 8 billion people on Earth, and a certain percentage of them will actually pay you money for what you have to sell. So it's nothing to burn through or approach with reckless abandon. You want to make sure that great emails are being sent out to your list because there's only so many we can contact, even if we get creative in ways that we can find new prospects.
All right, let's leave it here. Thanks so much, Jack.
All right, Jeremy, go prospecting.
Okay, so there is really no excuse for letting your funnel run dry anymore. And if that happens, here are some of the actionable things you can do. Number 1, explore other channels such as directories, lead databases, Facebook groups, Instagram, and so on to find new pockets of prospects. Number 2, set up notification alerts whenever possible to be informed when new prospects show up on those channels that prove very valuable and profitable. And finally, number 3, allocate some time each week to review your customer acquisition to see if anything stands out. Then run experiments with promising new personas.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or Tuning. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast
So they can send awesome emails.
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.